Hello, Marie. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. This is our second recording. We did one probably a couple of years ago that was very much focused on your career story and how you got into marketing. You also shared a lot of advice that will be beneficial for marketing professionals at any stage of their career. And I'm so delighted to have you today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Anna. It's a pleasure.
So, Marie, before we begin, I was just wondering if you could kindly introduce yourself.
Yes, absolutely. So, Marie Grieve, as I said, we've known each other for several years, and I have been on your podcast before. So, thank you so much for inviting me to return. I run a marketing consultancy called Costello Palmer Communications, and we are a global consultancy. We're quite a small team, but we have three offices. We have an office in Newcastle and in London in the UK, and we have an office in Santa Monica in Los Angeles in the US. So, we do cover a hugely global market. We focus primarily, not exclusively, but primarily on the construction industry, particularly within the digital built environment. So we work with the likes of architects and engineers, contractors, software developers, all within that digital space. And very much focusing on growth, strategic growth. That's what we support our clients with. We come in, we do an assessment on where their positioning is at in terms of their storytelling capabilities, their PR, their branding, and telling them how to actually enhance their services, enhance their capabilities to tell that story to essentially win more work. We come in to help people populate their bottom line.
Yeah, thank you. That is the role of marketing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
Well, often
well,
when people ask me what I do, I just say I'm a storyteller. So it's the easiest way.
the heart of the matter, isn't
Yeah.
it? And it's such an important skill. We'll definitely be talking more about skills and the role of marketing. But before we do that, I was just wondering if we could ponder and discuss the biggest challenges and opportunities for mid-level in-house marketing professionals.
I think the biggest challenge is budget. I think it's SMEs do struggle with having budget, and a lot of them don't prioritize their budget towards their marketing, which is crazy because, as we just said before, marketing is the bread and butter of how you generate your income. Obviously, there's
Yeah.
the sales aspect, but really focuses on that brand, that visibility, that identity, and that comes from marketing and the highly skilled marketing professionals within our organizations, but they can't do it on the tiniest of budgets. So we have to allow people to have a little bit of spend to actually go with it. So a lot of what you can do will be down to your in-house capabilities, but there is an absolute element of spend. And what comes with that spend is then the ROI. So what return do you get from that spend? So it's not just about allocating what funds you have to spend and where you spend it. It's making sure that you spend it wisely so that you're going to get that return on your investment. I'd say that's probably the biggest challenge.
Mhm.
Also, I would say creativity is a challenge, and actually being fresh, because we're in a very noisy marketplace and it's about being seen and being heard above the noise. So I think being creative on a shoestring budget is also a challenge. I think that's a really difficult one to come across. And I would say whenever I'm talking with people, because I do lots of advice and guidance, things like this, I do lots of conferences where I talk on stages. And my three key things are being meaningful, relevant, and current. And if you're not those three things, you will get overtaken by a competitor, or you will get overtaken by someone that wants to spend their money somewhere else. So I'd say it's about having the right amount of money to spend. Not just have to be lots of budget, but it's about having the right amount of budget to spend. It's being very careful where you spend it to get that ROI correct, and making sure that all your content is always relevant, meaningful, and current to your particular target audience.
That is so good advice. Thank you. I was going to say marketers are always asked to do more with less, right? There's only so much you could do with a very limited budget. And I think maybe many a times that reflects the organization's perspective on marketing. Marketing is being marginalized, and marketers really have to fight for any budget increase, and it just makes life and work so much more difficult. I think mid-level marketers will kind of need to do it more because they might have managerial positions, etc., and have to represent marketing in the organization. But where challenges come opportunities. So what would you say are the main ones nowadays?
The opportunities that are out there.
Opportunity.
Oh gosh, yeah. I think it depends on what their service or their product is. And I think it really does vary. But the main thing is understanding your audience and understanding where your audience is going to be and what they're reading and what they're looking at and what they're interested in. It's so much easier. We're going to probably touch upon B2B and B2C, but it's so much easier, if you like, in the marketing world if you've got a consumer brand, and it's much more exciting and it's faster paced. So it's much easier to then look at, right, well, I know where my audience is going to be if you've got a shampoo or a makeup product or a chocolate bar or something, or a holiday. But if you're in a services industry where it's a solicitor's firm or an accountancy firm or in the construction industry like we're in, it's very, very different. So I think the clever part of marketing is understanding not just who your target audience is, but where they're going to be and how you get yourself positioned in front of that person that you want to talk to or you want to buy your product or buy into your service area. And once you understand that, once you understand the behavior of your audience, that's when it becomes a lot easier. And that's where the opportunities lie. A very, very long time ago, when I did my dissertation on marketing, I did focused on consumer behavior. And it's really understanding what drives that consumer behavior. And once you understand that, you've pretty much nailed it.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so many thoughts based on what you've said. That is the crux of the matter, and I agree. I think one of the other main challenges for B2B marketers is that they're quite far removed from the end user or the client, and they will never be the client because there won't be solicitors or architects, and so it's definitely, I think, a gap that needs to be bridged between marketing professionals and the end users. And I think smart organizations will try to facilitate that for in-house marketing professionals. And obviously, I know your agency does a lot of work and is very much immersed into the world of the client, end user, construction professional, etc. And that's, yep, kind of the beginning and end of all things, right? Understanding the customer's needs, and speaking their language, which is definitely tricky for B2B marketers. I remember an aspect that you've touched on in our first episode was the opportunities that marketing professionals have nowadays in terms of career choices. And I was nodding my head emphatically back then. And I still think that aspect is very relevant. I remember back in when I first started working in marketing in 2011, freelancing, for example, was still an option, but it wasn't democratized, probably be the right term. Whereas now I feel like marketing professionals can carve careers that are more in line with their values, their aspirations, goals, etc. Especially, dare I say, maybe mid-level marketers who have some experience, kind of know what they like and don't like. But junior marketers as well, they definitely have more choices than we had some 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah, I would also say it's got a lot to do with the generational shift.
Mm.
And it's got a lot to do with the uptake of digital capabilities. I was at an event last week and someone handed me a card, which is very rare. Don't do cards anymore, but someone handed me a card. And their job title was Customer Experience Manager. Now that's
Mm.
just code for sales. But I love that. The fact that they call themselves a customer experience manager, it just means they didn't want whoever they're talking to have that perception that they're being sold to straight away. And I think that's the difference with the generation of younger marketers now have the opportunity to actually be expressive in different ways. So we're not necessarily called marketing manager or marketing executive or marketing coordinator. We can have a plethora of different roles. And I love the fact that we can just, as an industry now, we can just completely transform what we're called, not what we're doing. The principles of marketing will always remain the same. The delivery is different. And I think the opportunities lie that we can allow ourselves to have that creative expression to say, this is what I'm called and this is what I'm doing. Also, because we're in much more of a digital capable world, like we're talking from different parts of the country today, you don't have to have that transfixed position of where you're based geographically. Before we started recording, I just said this morning I've had 3 calls already. One was in the Philippines, one was here in the UK in London, and one was in Japan. So, and that's from, I'm in my kitchen today, and I speak to people from all over the world from my kitchen rather than being in the office. And I think that's what's open to younger marketers now, that those opportunities are there to be transitional anywhere or transformational anywhere, but also have the creativity to just not label themselves. Like I said when we started, I'm a storyteller. So if people ask me what I do, I tend to say I'm a storyteller. I don't say I'm a marketing consultant because people go, well, what's that? And I say, well, I like to help people tell their stories. And I think if that's the mindset that the sort of the generation that's coming into marketing now can say, I want to be a storyteller, and the mediums that are there now. So when I started out, when I was at university, we didn't have TikTok, didn't have Instagram, YouTube was pretty new. And I think those types of mediums give us far more opportunity for that creativity and that storytelling narrative.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, there means to flex that muscle, isn't it, of storytelling. And also, I think that the exchange of ideas that can now happen between people living in like opposite sides of the world is still fascinating to me. I'm still pinching myself sometimes that, wow, I can listen to the podcast of someone who's based in the United States, or, because these things were just not possible anyway, even 30 years ago. The thoughts of so many very intelligent individuals are
An
accessible freely.
organization that we've worked with really became successful from their YouTube advertising. And that's what helped them make it. Again, I'm not going to name names, but an organization that were pretty successful, got a YouTube channel, started populating lots of video content, amazing video content, but it was their advertising that really worked. And now they've got well over 1 million subscribers to their YouTube channel, down to their YouTube advertising. So
Adverts,
it's
yeah.
a very, very different way because I mean I know people who don't watch terrestrial television; they just watch YouTube or what other aspects of it. But they don't even have TV in their house. So you're laughing saying I had a TV when I was young. People actively don't have televisions today because they actually use other mediums to actually get to to access the information that they want to access. So I think again that the whole when you taught about what marketing is, like I said, the principles don't change, but the delivery of it completely changes, especially if you have that B2C product, especially if you are selling cruises or holidays or fitness items. I mean, just for example, if you remember during lockdown and Joe Wicks, the
Yes.
sports I don't even know
Fitness
what you would call him, that
expert.
influencer, I suppose. And no one had heard of Joe Wicks before he started doing PE with Joe in the mornings. I mean, I can't
Yes.
remember how old your son was at the time, but my daughter would have been 10. And we did Joe Wicks every morning because there was no school, homeschooling. So we did Joe Wicks every morning, 8:30. And I just think, gosh, I wish I'd been on Joe Wicks's PR team because he's just done so well. And that was through his YouTube channel of saying, right, we're going to do this every morning, and literally got the entire nation. And so even sort of like 10 years previously to that, no one would have been able to do that. We had like completely different role models in the fitness space. And now look at what he's achieved and look at his YouTube channels now in terms of his cooking and his books and the challenges that he does all over the world. And that's again through the likes of video and that medium, which we weren't using sort of 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. Now, so that's a very good transition into our next topic, which is AI. And we were just chatting earlier, saying that there's a lot of content out there about the ins and outs of AI and how it should be adopted and used by marketing professionals. But I think it's so important that we looked at the ethics and ethical usage of AI that underpins everything. And so I was just wondering if you have any thoughts and opinions about that.
Oh, absolutely. And not just ethical, which I'll come on to first, but sustainable. It really, really is something that produces a huge carbon footprint. But again, I'll come back to that in a second. I mean,
Yeah.
the professional enhancements, so like the productivity, the scheduling, the automation, the sides of things that's making our jobs a lot quicker and a lot smoother is brilliant. And no one's going to deny the pros that come with using AI. And people say I don't. Again, at this event I was at last week, the speaker sort of said, hands up to the audience who you, and I'm talking about there's like 60, 70 people in this particular talk that were in, and hands up who uses AI every day for their work. And two out of an audience of 60 put their hands up. And I'm looking around going, that can't be right. That cannot actually be right. But they forget that Facebook and even just anything Google related, or even your Instagram, or just when you turn your laptop on and a notification pops up, that's all AI. And
Hmm.
people just, they use AI so many times a day in their daily lives that they don't know they're doing it, or they just forget that they're doing it because it comes automated. And again, it's that whole automated task thing.
Yeah.
People actually think, well, no, I have to jump on ChatGPT before I can actually say I used AI today, and that's so not true.
No.
People are using it without even understanding that it's the capabilities of the algorithms are driving stuff behind the scenes of what they're doing. So
Yeah.
in that respect, AI is amazing and it is completely transformational in how we're actually working and operating. My kind of, from a marketing, when we're using it in marketing, it's impersonal, it's often inaccurate, and it's kind of how reliable is it? And with anything data, and the data is the world that I live in within that digital construction spaces. Everything's about the accuracy and the reliability and the trustworthiness of the data. And when it comes, because a lot of my clients are building buildings, a lot of my clients are building schools and hospitals and roads, and we can't rely on AI to build a school because what if some of the data was inaccurate and a window fell in and hit a child? And that's quite dramatic, but we have to have that risk averse. So the ethical side of using AI is absolutely important, but the accuracy side of using AI is far greater, and we
Mm.
can't rely on AI alone. There still has to be that human element to it.
Yeah.
And everyone says, oh, AI is going to come and take our jobs, particularly in architecture or even marketing. And AI is going to produce that advert and write that social media script and produce the video, and we're not needed. But I always say that AI is not going to take your job. Someone that knows how to use AI effectively and efficiently will take your job. So you need to be trained in how to use AI effectively and efficiently and ethically.
Yeah.
And that's kind
Yeah.
of the major thing. But I think there's also a third aspect to it of all these huge data centers that are needed to power our AI searches. So
Yeah.
if you think about how much of a carbon footprint we're using from AI, so I'll give you an example. If we just did a Google search and you
Mm.
Google searched, I don't know, I want to go to Spain. It's like switching the light switch on in your house in one room.
Mm.
Okay. If you put into ChatGPT, what's the best Balearic island I can go to for myself and my family? And you ask the ChatGPT to search for you and look up some hotels. That's like switching on every light in the house. And that's one search.
Yeah.
So if you think the likes of people who use AI to generate a funny meme for themselves and animate a meme and they put it on their Facebook or their Instagram, how many houses did they power to create that one silly little graphic that moves around?
Yeah.
So what as a marketer, what we have to think of is what carbon cost is there to our marketing campaigns that we've generated through AI? And how many houses have we powered in terms of their electricity by
Mm.
our ability to create a video or to create an advert or to create the story that we've created? And
Yeah.
how do we offset that carbon output? And that's what worries me more so than the accuracy and the governance and the reliability. It's the cost, the carbon cost that we're running up using AI functionality.
Oh, I think that is a very topical matter, especially because in the last decade or so, there's been so much activity around caring for the environment, like probably in the last 20 years, right? It's like top of mind as a topic. And now that we are adopting AI, kind of forgetting a little bit about its effects on the planet. I watched the documentaries a few months ago, and they were interviewing the people living around one of these big data centers in the United States, and their water usage was affected by the data centers that were needing a lot of fresh water to cool down the servers, etc. And I thought that's just so unfair, right? So they had, I think, water shortages, something like that. If you look it up online, you can find the documentary, and it's really kind of a reality check. And I think, yeah, definitely use AI, but be discerning about when and how, and if it's really needed. And obviously, as a user, don't allow it to replace your thinking creativity. Don't use it as a therapist. It's a machine. Like AI is a machine, so let's keep it in that category, and also, realize it costs the environment. Well, thank you for that. So, speaking about trends and marketing career trends in particular, I have spoken with a few marketing professionals recently who were contemplating the transition from B2B marketing, which is challenging in the ways we've just discussed, into B2C marketing. What advice would you give to them?
For me, B2C, like I said, it's very fast. It's very consumer led. B2B is very much relationship building. So that the length of time it takes to convert, well, to build that trust with the audience, convert the sale, and then maintain the relationship. And loyalty in B2B is far greater than loyalty is in B2C. I mean, we didn't have influencers until the last sort of 5 or 6 or maybe even 10 years. And
Mhm.
influencers are huge in that B2C market, and I'm a big advocate of it. And I think it really allows us to understand if people can see someone that they admire or can resonate with, and they know that that product's trustworthy, then, I mean, obviously, people still have to understand that they're being paid to advertise their product. But
Yeah.
I think the idea of an influencer is great to allow that B2C relationship to build, but it is very quick and fast, and the turnover will go really, really quickly.
Mhm.
From a B2B side of things, it's about building that relationship and that trust and confidence with the client and the provider, the product provider, the services provider, rather than the product. So I think anyone thinking about the differences and how it's going to work is really has to understand that B2B is a long-term investment and B2C is fast and quick. And the creativity or the opportunity for creativity is greater, but within B2B, the opportunity for trust and loyalty and actually understanding what the brand values are greater. So that it's a very different way of introducing yourself or your product or your service to the audience and to the market. So yeah, that's a huge difference in terms of how we actually deliver what we're trying to get across.
Yeah, that difference is brilliantly explained. Thank you, Marie. And would you say that one offers more career prospects than the other, or does it kind of all depend on the company and the personal goals? And
I think if you're a really creative visual person, you should go to B2C because there
Mhm.
are a lot more opportunities to be far more creative. If you're more of an analytical thinker in your marketing style, then go B2B because there's a lot of data and number crunching you can actually utilize. And I always think having great data allows you to make better decision making.
Yeah.
So if anyone watches Emily in Paris, that's a really great idea that she's into that fashion world. And if someone wants to have that sort of glamorous side to marketing, follow the Emily in Paris route, without a
Mm.
doubt. If someone wants to be more analytical and have more in-depth conversations, go into the service provider route. And the fields that you've worked in previously and that I currently work in within architecture, some of the stories that we get to tell are just out of this world on some of the most amazing projects. I mean, I've worked on some really fantastic projects in New York and in London that I've been able to tell the stories on for architecture clients. And one architect I'm working with in New York right now does some really fantastic stuff on sort of like New York Aquarium. They do things on museums in New York, and we get to talk about all of that. And obviously, it's really exciting to see. And then from that, we can build our storytelling narrative around it. So it
Yeah.
just depends if what the sort of the creative process that the individual is looking for. There are
That's
some
right.
really exciting things to be done.
Well, I'm very glad you highlighted, the glamorous side of B2B marketing, that it's not all boring like people might think, might believe. And so, yeah,
Oh
and
gosh,
on
it's
the
far from boring. It's definitely far from boring.
right, exactly. And on the flip side, I don't think the B2C marketing work and environment is as glamorous as it might seem from the outside. I think there's a lot of competition, the margins can be really, really small, and there can be a lot of pressure. It's all very dependent, obviously, on the company at hand. That's
Yeah, I
kind
mean,
of
just
the
as a little, one of my earliest roles in my early career, not long out of university, and I was working for a race course. And it was part of a racing group that had 12 race courses all across the UK, and I did PR and marketing and hospitality and sponsorship. And we did this breakfast event, and we partnered with a big department store for this breakfast event. And it was when we actually used to deliver invitations via the mail and things like that. Rather than email, we actually did. So with this department store, we had a breakfast box, if you like, and within each box we had a croissant and some butter and some small spots of jam. So we actually hand delivered all of these 60 invitations with a croissant, fresh that morning from the department store. Those sorts of things are really exciting that we
yeah.
get to do some super fabulous stuff. Last week I was at this event in London and I was invited by a client to an evening party after the conference had finished at this very big posh hotel near Canary Wharf, in obviously on the Docklands, and we had lots of lovely wine and canapes, and there was music, and it was just so yeah. So the B2B world can be equally as glamorous. Yeah.
Right, exactly, exactly. And it very much depends, like the choice is very much dependent on the individual, what their strengths are, like you said, what the career plans are. Yeah. And equally, you were talking about sending out the breakfast boxes, and who can say no to croissants?
Yeah.
Right. But I think now in marketing, we're also moving a little bit closer to the analog, in person side of things because we have overdosed on digital. And it's really interesting to sort of notice this trend. I'm digressing. Well, so speaking of the early stages of your career, I was wondering if looking back, in your professional trajectory, you would have done something differently or would you do something differently? And if yes, are there any learnings for us all?
I think when you get asked the question, what would you do differently? I think essentially people should say no, nothing, because you wouldn't have learned from it if you
Mhm.
hadn't done things the way you did it. You wouldn't learn, and I think that's where your strength comes from. So I did a conference piece quite recently on confidence
Mm.
and about understanding where confidence comes from. And I think a lot of us lack confidence in the fact that we want to be whoever people expect us to be, or we try to mold ourselves to a certain situation. And the idea is that have the confidence to understand who you are and have the confidence to be who you are and be unapologetic for that. And I think the lessons that you've learned in your career allow you to become the person you are today and how the confidence then builds from that. So I think what would I change? Probably not a lot. Would I cringe? Probably an awful lot.
Yeah, all
So
of
I
us.
think lessons learned are it's more about the people than the process. And
Mm.
I think most of the lessons that I learned was from being surrounded by good people and learning from good people. And I always think if you surround yourself with good and great people, then great things will happen. So it's also understanding how to identify the people not to spend time with as well, people that are maybe sort of not beneficial to who you are and what you can achieve, and then understanding where you can learn. So, like good managers, good directors, people that you can actually learn from and how they've actually delivered. So, mentoring is huge. I would really encourage younger generations coming into marketing or the middle managers to look at what mentoring can do and how mentoring can support. They're going to give you the tools to figure it out yourself. And I think that's one of the really great things. So I've have had the luxury of being a mentor to several people. One was in a travel app that was launched several years ago, and giving them advice and guidance on how to enter the market from that travel perspective. But lessons learned, yeah, many lessons learned. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think that's the beauty of being in a profession for a while is that you're constantly learning. I mean, we're all learning. I think if I look back and if I could put my finger on things I would have done differently, I think there would have probably been attitudes. Like, for example, not being so task focused because, like you said, it's about the people, right? So I think like I should have maybe spent more time just getting to know my colleagues, as opposed to just like being very busy to get stuff done. I remember taking my lunch breaks at 3 p.m., which meant that I would miss out on the opportunity of chatting with everybody at 1 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
But I wanted to get everything, well, not everything done, but most of the things done, and then I could relax. That was like my perspective. But I just looking back just realized why no, I should have at least twice a week taken the lunch at a normal time with everybody else and actually enjoy the experience.
I
So
think when you mentioned AI before and sort of that working from anywhere in the world and working from home thing, I think that is kind of the not so positive side of it, that you miss that human interaction. So people working from home and people being engrossed in AI and having AI do all the automated tasks, you then depleting your human contact. And you're right, you need that. You need that for your creativity, for your thought process to share. So even if that is just when you're making a coffee at 11 or you go out for lunch together, it's kind of you need that time to decompress and to share your thoughts. And
yeah.
you don't really get that if you're always working from home or working in that digital space.
Yeah, and at least a hybrid version, of that, because I do understand people who love working from home. I'm one of them. But I do think that hybrid arrangements could be very beneficial because you're getting the best of both worlds. So yeah, you can, have your focus time at home, but then once or twice a week go into the office, for example, and then have that in-person interaction with your colleagues, which is like tremendous. Like it's irreplaceable by any digital means. And I really hope to meet you in person at some point in the
Yes.
near future, or not too distant future at least. I just want to thank you once again, Marie, for your time today. Our second podcast recording, and we encourage everybody to tune into the first one as well, because it was a very, very good conversation about the basics of marketing and your career story, which is fascinating. And so thank you very much.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure, Anna.